Okay, welcome everyone. How are we all doing? I hope we had a great week. This is day 3 of our session, day 4 technically, but this is day 3 of the topics that we've been handling since we started. Um, how has your week been? My week has been beautiful, very active, very busy, and I'm glad and I'm happy that we are here. I'm glad and I'm happy that we're here again today. So, as usual, we're just going to get right into the business of the day. And our topic for today is how to answer the questions of self-identity, how to answer the questions of potential, how to discover your potentials, how to understand your identity. Sorry, let me just get this music out of the way. So as I said earlier, our topic for this week is how to answer the questions of self um, identity and then how to discover your potentials. So in the beginning of this series, of this program, we talked about some word pictures to try to explain the objective of this program, which is activating your potentials, building and balancing your personality, as well as clarifying your purpose. So one of the word pictures that we described on the first day, was like, imagine yourself as a generator. Imagine yourself as something or a device that generates power. So you see that generator has different parts and all that. And that generator needs something to power it so that it can fulfill what it was made for. So that's the word picture I want you to have in your mind as we go through this session. So one of the greatest frustrations, and that's the reason why the topic of today is frustration. One of the greatest frustrations of life is not knowing who you are, is not understanding who you are. As children, we come in, we're part of a family, we have our identity, we have our mommy and daddy. So we always we find some connection between us and where we came from, physically speaking. But there comes a time in our lives where you begin to want to validate your identity and validate your individuality. So when you start growing up and you start seeing that you're an individual, start losing that attachment and start trying to find yourself as a person, you find out that that struggle to understand your identity, that struggle to gain your individuality, usually causes a lot of identity crisis for a lot of people. So you get people, not sure who they are, trying to define themselves by friends, trying to define themselves by maybe their career, trying to define themselves by what they do or who they are with, different kind of things. So there's that struggle, there's that big question mark just around your life as to who am I? What am I even in this world for? So, and everybody knows that there comes a point where there's a struggle. You just want to understand who you are. And sometimes, as you keep asking and asking, it seems like, some people just assume. Sometimes we just want to assume that we know, just so that we don't look like we are clueless about some things. But I find that to be a mistake that most people make. Because as children, if you have a child or you know any child around you, children always ask questions. There's this curiosity we are born with as children. And that curiosity makes us ask questions. And as children, there's always discovery, you're discovering new things. And that's why children learn very fast. You find that they're always asking questions, they're always curious about things, they're always wondering. And the more they ask, the more answers they get, the more they gain knowledge. But we find out that also we get to a point in our lives where that curiosity is dampened. And they tell you, I don't ask you too many questions, or you're always asking questions, get out of the way. And we find out that we crush our curiosity. And many times people don't want to ask those questions about themselves. And they just want to go into life feeling like they know who they are. And a lot of times people get into adulthood and they are clueless about themselves and they keep making mistakes. They keep getting into the wrong things, keep getting into the wrong career, keep getting stuck into so many things. So, and it causes a lot of frustration. But find somebody who has some form of self-esteem or understands a little bit about who they are. And you find out that the more you know about yourself, the less frustrated you are. The more you understand, you gain your identity, you gain self-esteem, the less frustrated you are in life. So we must understand that it's not a bad thing to ask questions. And this session today is about sparking up your interest. It's about asking the right questions, asking the right person those right questions so you can get the answers. Because for you to activate your potentials, you have to understand what they are. For you to activate yourself, for you to get onto with what you have been created to do, you have to understand yourself first. The self-mastery begins with self-understanding. It begins with self-discovery. Let me say that again. Self-mastery begins with self-discovery. But in the course of this session, we'll understand the secret of self-discovery. Understanding who you are, discovering your identity, discovering your individuality is very key. Yesterday, we talked about our uniqueness as women. As an individual, you have unique traits that are unique to you, just different from who you are as a woman. There's a unique trait. You're a woman that has a unique personality, that has unique potentials, that has unique gifts. So you need to understand what these things are so you can get on with your life. So we would, for you to get the, knowing who you are and why you're born is a journey. That's another thing I want to say. It's not something you just go, you get a blueprint and you know everything. No, that self-discovery is a journey. You never get to a point where you fully know everything about yourself, but it is a journey of growth. And so it starts somewhere. You have to be on the journey for you to progress with your life. If you're not on the journey of self-discovery, you find out that you're not progressing, because the person who is progressing, the person who is moving ahead has to be able to understand how to move ahead. And it's understanding yourself that would help you move ahead. So what are these questions that you need to ask yourself? What are these questions you have to ask yourself? And I don't know if we've asked ourselves. If you want to ever understand who you are, it starts with those questions. It starts with those questions. So who you are is the first. Who am I is the first question. So there are 7 questions of self-discovery, and I'm going to quickly run through that. So the first question of self-discovery, and if we are following, please just drop a chat on the chat box to say, I'm listening, I'm following, I'm here, or something. Let's just know that we're with us, because I can't see any activity, and I don't want to feel like I'm talking to myself. All right. So who am I is actually the crux of this session. Who am I is the question of identity. It's a question you need to ask yourself. Who am I? And a lot of times when you ask, you say, I'm Oge, or I'm Jennifer, or I'm Esther, or I'm Chinwe. Yes, your name, yes, kind of like gives you, like it's part of your identity, but that's not all there is about you. That's not all there is about you as a person. So who you are, who am I, is a question you need to ask. Beyond the name you've been given, you need to ask yourself, who am I? And it's the question of identity. Remember, we said that. The second question to ask that will lead to self-discovery is, where do I come from? So origin, who you are, where you come from, has a lot of clues hidden in it as to yourself, your identity, who you are, what you are born to do. So where do I come from? It's talking about your origin. So these are the questions you need to ask yourself. And as you ask yourself those questions and you get the answers, it will lead you to self-discovery. So the next question to ask is, why am I here? Always ask yourself this. Apart from the fact that in the general scheme of things, you need to ask yourself, why am I here? anything you are ever doing in life, everything you ever get involved in, always learn to ask the question, why? It's about the objective. A lot of times, without full understanding of an objective, you can't be fully committed or invested in many things you're doing. So that objective is very, very key. What's your objective in life? Why are you here? Why are you here? Do you have any purpose in life? Do you know your purpose in life? These are the questions to ask. You can't just sit down and say, anyhow, whatever happens, life, let it just happen like that. No, you have to ask yourself these questions, and you have to have a very good idea what the answers are for you to really get into that journey to where you are called to be. But we're going to get there. Let me not run beyond myself. So the next question to ask is, what can I do? You know, the topic for today is saying understanding your potentials. What can I do? You might not be doing that thing, but you know you have a potential to do a certain thing. And that understanding of the potential leads you to an understanding of who you are. What can I do? What can I do? If you see a bird that can fly, you know, because that bird can fly, it links, that ability to fly links with the identity of the bird, right? So the next question to ask, number 5, I hope we're getting all of them and we're noting it down. If you don't have them, all these, like I've said before, they are all in my book. So today we're covering the theme around chapter 3 of my book, Sugar and Spice, the Making of a Woman. So all these questions of self-discovery are there in an expanded form. So you can also take some reference from the book as we're rolling down the question. So where am I going is the 5th question. So it's a question of destiny. Where are you headed? So where the big picture of the end, the big picture of where all this activity or all that you're doing in life is going to culminate is another key to understanding who you are. So all these questions they are different, they cover different things, but they all lead to one thing called self-discovery, where you have some level of understanding of yourself and what that it feeds your self-esteem. Number 6 question, because these first 5 questions has a lot to do with you as a being, just within yourself, as a human being. But self-discovery is not just limited to what we can do as individuals. It's also, there's also a dimension that has to do with how you connect with others. Remember, in our first lesson, we talked about the foundation, what constitutes your foundation. We talked about your character and we talked about connectedness. So your ability to relate with people, as well as your ability to respond to the issues of life. So there are 2 elements to that foundation. So you can't just say the foundation is just this. Your connectedness, how you connect with people, has a lot to do. So these last 2 questions now starts moving into that part where it goes beyond just you to others that you are, connected to. So the 6th question is, what do I have? So it's talking about your gifts, your resources. What do you have in your immediate environment? What can you use? What has been given to you, for you to fulfill that grand purpose in your life? So that's a great question to ask, because you are not just born in a vacuum. You are born in the context of something, So what do I have is number 6 question. And then number 7 is, who do I work with? Now that's talking about your relationships. So sometimes we feel, oh, my self identity has everything just to do with me. No, there are aspects of our self identity that is in connection with others. It's in that context of others. So if we look at, there's another a framework for understanding who we are, which has an acronym for ease of understanding. So if you say, I want to know who I am, I want to understand myself, I want to understand my identity, there's an acronym we also use called SHAPE. So if you write the word SHAPE, there's SHAPE. So the S talks about your spiritual gifts. We're going to get into that to understand that context of spiritual gifts. So S is spiritual gifts. H is heart. So that word heart is like used to express passion. So what you are motivated to do. So your spiritual gifts is for S. H is heart. A is your abilities. We've talked about it. What can I do? Or, what do I have? So your abilities are part of the things that help you know your shape for your purpose. So there's abilities, there's P, personality. So your personality, the way you respond, the way you view life, you perceive life, has a lot to do with your personality. And that points you to who you really are. And we're going to talk in full detail on personality in other sessions because we don't even have enough time to cover that. But personality is one key way to understand yourself. That's personality, that aspect of personality, self-mastery has a lot to do with how much you understand your personality. That's your weaknesses and your strengths, and how you're able to leverage strengths and then downplay weaknesses. There's a lot of detail there. So in the shape, the last letter is E, which has to do with your experiences. So the reason why I brought this shape framework is because in understanding who you are, your experiences have a lot to play. Where you are even coming from. You don't just drop from the sky. You come from a family, and that family shapes you. Maybe the personality, your personality, for instance, has a lot to do with where you're coming from. You find out that you maybe act a lot like your parents and all that. So there's an aspect that the parents or the parents that give birth to you, there's an aspect of you, who you are, that is cut out from them. Remember the foundation course, we talked about it, that you're not just on your own, you're not just standalone. There's somewhere you came from, and a lot of who you are, a lot of clues about who you are is also linked there to where you come from. So that we're talking about experiences, and then we're talking about your relationship. Who do I work with and all that? So asking yourselves these questions is key. And you need to ask, there are ways to answer it, there are clues. So life, like we said, self-discovery is a journey. So in that journey, you have a guide, you have a map. That's one thing we need to understand. We're not in this journey alone. The reason why many of us are frustrated in the journey is because we just get into that journey. Just imagine going to a new town, country you've never been before, and you say, I want to do a tour, and you just enter the road, just hit the road. A lot of times, before people go on tour or anything, they have guides. They've booked, with some agency that has guides to show them. So there's a guide, you have maps, just so you don't lose your way. So when we come into this earth, a lot of times people are frustrated. They spend a long time trying to discover who they are. But there's a guide and there's a map. It's a journey. So from the beginning, there's something, those questions, those discomforts, those frustrations are supposed to lead us to the guide. So you find out, look at products. If you buy a product, you don't just start using the product. You look at the manual, you find the manual. So as human beings, we didn't just appear. Leave all these things they're saying about evolution and all that. We didn't just appear. We are created beings, created by a creator. So if you want to understand yourself, if you want to understand anything, the first place to go is to the creator. So it makes it removes, it cuts down this frustration a whole lot if we can only lean on the understanding, lean on the understanding of our creator. So I would like to quote from the good book that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. So you say, trust in the creator, the manufacturer with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he will direct your path. So you find out that when we acknowledge what he has put in us and we begin to, look at our lives in the context of what he has written in his manual, you find out that you have an amazing discovery. So it becomes an adventure. It becomes exciting. because you begin to discover things. You begin to learn things about yourself. And the more you learn about yourself, the more your life expands. So the more you look into the manual, the more you look into the manual, the more you see about yourself. The more you see about yourself, the more you know. So as you keep seeing things, you keep seeing things about yourself, you know more. The more you know, the more you believe. You know, you believe even if something about you has not manifested or hasn't come forth, you believe that it will come because you know. There's something you know about yourself. There's something you know about your potential. And potential is an ability to do something in the future. So the more you know, the more you believe. The more you believe, the more you do. So you find out that, okay, I have a potential, I have something I can do. And the one you can do, you put it to work in expectation of the ones that are coming ahead. So if the more you believe, the more you do, the more you do, the more you understand. So there's some understanding that comes by learning, just knowing. Somebody told you. There's the understanding, another part of understanding that comes by doing. So when you get to the knowledge where you've known something and then you now understand it by doing it, that's another level. So the more you understand it, the more you're fulfilled. And because you just see that there's an amazing design in this whole thing. And so the more fulfilled you are, the more happy you are. So you find out that frustration eases out as we step into that journey, trusting in our guide, holding on to the map, doing everything we can to align to him and align to his purpose. So a lot of times we are running on our own and it is frustrating. But for you to understand your identity, your self-discovery begins with God discovery. Your identity lies in God's identity. So you find your identity in God. He said we are created in his image and in his likeness. So our image is God. He created us. So when you want to know yourself, when you know God, you get a lot of insight about who you are. So self-discovery begins with God discovery, and like I said, it's a journey. It's not something you just jump into and then you just know it. The last thing I want to say about this journey is that sometimes a lot of people find that, maybe you've done some things in life and you feel like, okay, I've wasted all these years or something didn't work out and, I'm kind of like, I've lost it or I've lost. No, I want you to understand that in this journey of self-discovery, on this journey of your self-identity, finding yourself, fulfilling your purpose, unlocking your potentials, you must understand that it's not like a blueprint. So when you say your purpose in life or your identity or who you are, look, it's not like it's not like an architect's drawing to say, okay, this is how the house is. If we don't draw according to this design, we have missed it. The journey is like a flowing river. The path to your purpose is like a flowing river. A lot of things can come in and maybe disrupt the flow. But if you throw those things out, what happens? The water, the cause of the water is the path that water flows through that needs to be perfect to keep that water flowing to the destination. So sometimes we might have kinks, something might move us out of track. But with God, aligned to God, your path, your purpose, everything with his understanding, with that belief, with that knowledge, with that seeing, revelation, your path is guided back into that cause towards the destination God has for you. So don't give up, don't stop moving, don't stop searching, don't stop the journey. It's a journey, don't ever end. I like to teach this course with hope, to tell you that you're in a journey, but you cannot stand. If you say, if you are supposed to go to maybe, I'm in Lagos now and I'm supposed to go to Enugu, and I go to the bus park and somebody distracts me and I enter a car going to Kaduna. When I get to Kaduna, do I get there and say, oh, because I got to Kaduna, let me not just stay here since I'm already here? No, you don't do that. If your intention, or if the intention of whoever sent you was that you end up in Enugu, what happens is that you redirect your path from wherever you missed your way. and find it back into where you missed it. So that's the thing, beautiful thing about purpose. That's the beautiful thing about discovery. That's the beautiful thing about life. So we've said a lot, and I think we've hit the 10-minute mark where we're close to hitting the final 10 minutes of the session. So I'm going to stop here and to ask, okay, if there's any of us who have questions. You know, the questions, I just ran through them, but you know, it's a personal thing. You need to sit down and ask yourself. There are clues, a lot of clues you can have. And then when it comes to personality, there are 4 distinct personalities. A lot of people have different styles of explaining them, but there are 4 distinct personalities. Some people call sanguine, choleric, phlegmatic, and melancholy. There's one classification like that. Some classify it as wind. They use the elements: the wind, fire, water, earth. You know, so it just depends on the person's disposition and the person's preference. So your personality has a lot to do with who you are, what you're called to do, and all that. So it's something you need to like look at, study. The more you study about these things, the more you understand it, and the more you understand, like I said, the more you are fulfilled. So never stop studying. You are a lifelong study. You know, your life is a lifelong study. So never stop studying. So now we're on our last 10 minutes. Do we have questions? Any questions? You know, this thing called frustration, that's what leads self-identity. That's what leads many of us to wrong relationships. Somebody comes, maybe gives you an identity that you never had, or gives you some esteem that you never had. And a lot of times we fall prey as women, and then we lose ourselves until you find yourself again. So this frustration of self-identity or identity crisis can lead you down many paths, you know, many paths, especially the most that we fall into. Yes, Chinwe is talking about it. The one that we fall into mostly as women is finding your identity in someone else, trying to say my identity is attached to this person. And a lot of times it causes us, it leads to a terrible, you know, shipwreck of our lives and all that. So it takes faith. It takes faith to get into the journey of self-discovery. There are many things you will not start out knowing. And if you don't continue in that journey of faith, you will lose, you will miss out, because everything won't be told to you. You might not get the whole picture at once. You might need to walk, you know. So maybe I've lived long enough to look back and say, so all these seemingly unrelated events in my life actually came together to form this reality that I'm experiencing now. It's you know, looking in retrospect, but at that time it took a lot of faith to just continue on the path, you know, just keep on moving on, because you know that things might not just make sense. They're not just making sense, but you know that because you're aligned to your creator, because it's a guide beside you, and there's a map you're holding. So that map is telling you this thing will lead somewhere, but down you're not seeing it. You know, if you're on the road, on the journey, maybe like there's traffic. When you're inside that traffic, you might feel this traffic is going the stretch of the way. But if somebody is in a helicopter, maybe up, and is looking down, the person might see that, look, just in 5 meters, the road will be free. But inside that traffic, you never know that. You will never be able to see that because you have not seen the big picture. So by trusting the guide, sometimes he even gives us that view. So it takes you up and shows you that, look, things will still clear out. So it gives you some peace and some reassurance, even in the midst of seeming confusion. So the frustrations are dissipated by faith. So faith dissipates the frustrations. When you keep frustrated and struggling, by the time you align to the creator and put your faith in him, it calms all the frustrations. So someone is saying, how do you move from just answering these questions to living the realities? You remember what I said? I said, the more you look, the more you see, the more you see, the more you know, the more you know, the more you believe. So when that belief comes, when you come to the point where you have studied enough and then there's faith to act, put to work the ones that you are convinced about. So don't wait until every question is answered or everything is, no, the ones you have received conviction about, the ones you're sure of, get on with it. So for instance, now when we started out, you know, a course, you say, okay, which course am I going to read? You're not too sure exactly where this course might lead you, but you just have your options, you seek counsel, people tell you different things, and then in the multitude of counselors, there's safety. That's what happens. So you get your own answer after seeking all the counsel, and you get into the course and you start reading the course. So you start doing, you just start on the journey. Don't wait until every question is answered. You know, ask the questions as you move on the journey. So it's a step-by-step thing. It's not something you sit down and the blueprint is given and then you now know. Is it possible to have the 4 elements of personality in one person? No. You don't originally come having the 4 personalities. It will look like a lot of conflict. But what happens is that you can develop yourself to start manifesting the strengths of the 4 personalities. Because understand, the 4 personalities have weaknesses and strengths. So there's a good part of them and a bad part. So for every good part, there's a bad part too. So if you say you want to express everything, it's going to really be a mess. So what we do is that there's something called normal temperament. There's something called spirit controlled temperament. So there's a book that was written, very good resource. So what I'll give you about personality, the best resource I have seen, you know, on personality is the Why We Act the Way We Do, like by Tim LaHaye. It gives you an idea of that 4 personalities. It's not like cast in stone and all that. Just, it's important for you to read it to know your natural self, and then by the time you understand your natural self, you know what you trust God and lean on His grace and His Spirit to help you curb. So there's the one, I will say, spirit control temperament. By the time you work on it with the help of God, those personalities refined. The rough areas are ironed out, and then you're able to get on with your life. So it's a journey. That's one thing you must always understand. Self-discovery is a journey. I don't want someone to ever think it's a blueprint that if I miss, I've missed out. No, it's a journey. You can never miss out on it. The day you can wake up at maybe like the twilight of your life and still do it. But it's important to start early in the journey. All right. Any other questions? Any other questions? So shape is one way of understanding your identity. Personality is another way. 7 questions. So have this study yourself. There's nothing else worth studying as much as studying yourself. You know, you're the first person. When you know yourself, you actually are on the journey to a mastery of everything. So self-mastery is the pivotal mastery of life. So you can't master anything if you can't master yourself. There's a scripture in Proverbs that talks about somebody who can rule himself is better than the person that takes down a city. You can imagine. So if you're able to understand and master yourself, you're better than somebody that went to take a whole city. So I have it's a serious, my story of frustration is all in this chapter 3. Very interesting. I think it's one of the most interesting chapters of my book. A lot of stories, a lot of up and down. What's the title of the book on personality and the author? Why You Act the Way You Do by Tim and Beverly, I think. LaHaye, L-A-H-A-Y-E. So that's the book on personality. So you can also get that. But if you have my book, so I took that book to talk about the 4 personalities and all that. So you can also do a quick study there. So we have that listed out in that book. So that's it for the frustration. So if we have any further questions or you have any comments or anything, you can bring it to the WhatsApp group, and we can discuss further there. So I usually drop questions for understanding so that you can do your further study. If you need more insights, if you need more one-on-one, you can just hit me a message and then we can discuss that. If you also need the videos of the past session, has a lot of insight, especially the intro. There was a lot that was said in the intro, short and sharp, but a lot of content there. So just hit me a DM and get it. I'll see you guys next week, Thursday. So bye.